Jazzcast Pros.
Today, we have an incredible, inspiring guest with us. She faced the immense challenge of being her mother's caregiver until the very end, an experience that tested her strength and resilience, but that did not stop her. Drawing on that strength, she transformed her life, becoming a 3-time published author and a successful business consultant. Season 7 is all about the journey to business ownership. So whether you are a current entrepreneur or thinking about launching your own business, this season is for you. Welcome to Fearless Fridays with Maryann, the podcast to help you get unstuck, heal your inner child, and reshape your future. I am your host, Maryann Rivera-Dannert, and with over 10 years of experience as a coach, author, speaker, and owner of MRD Empowerment Solutions, I use my personal life experience with trauma, healing, and rediscovery as a catalyst for personal growth. My mission is to empower you to discover and unlock your full potential, paving the way to a life marked by freedom and balance. Together, we'll tackle the tough stuff and find the strength within to rise above. So, Lynn, tell us, what made you become an author and start your own business?
I wasn't going to be an author. I'm kind of an accidental author. And my first book is called Out of Love, A Daughter's Journey with Her Mom to the End. And I had to write that book. I was compelled to write that book out of my years, 6+ years of being a caregiver for my mom. And so shout out to all the family caregivers out there who are blindsided by a diagnosis or an accident or, some life event that happens with a loved one where you're all of a sudden thrust into this tsunami of emotions and you don't know what to do or how to care for your loved one. You're just literally flying by the seat of your pants. And so I thought that this book needed to come out. It needed to be written for the family caregivers. So it's care for the family caregivers. That was a labor of love. I had never written a book before. I had been part of a book before. I had been asked by a coach, one of my very dear friends who's a life coach and kind of a spiritual coach. And she said, Lynn, I teach coaches how to build their businesses after they learn how to kind of be a coach and they get clients going, but they don't really exactly get trained on how to build the business. And so that was my first foray into writing for a published book back in 2019. And then Out of Love came out in 2022. And I thought, it's not so bad being an author. And I made a lot of mistakes. I made so many mistakes. And so what I'm doing today is I'm actually helping other people who think that they might have a book in them or even a chapter in them to get out there and show up as themselves. Don't show up like you think somebody else wants you to show up. Show up as you. And my hashtag is show up you, YOU. And I love teaching and training and consulting with individuals, entrepreneurs, even collaborative teams. And, as long as it's a conscious business, as long as it's a business that I believe in, that I would promote myself, I will work with those people. So I've really enjoyed this kind of accidental author journey, which led me up to meeting you, right?
Right. So you've said a lot. So let's break all of this down. Number one, okay, so you mentioned that you made a lot of mistakes during the first book that, you did. What were some of those mistakes, for the people who may be listening and they, either want to become an author or become a coach or a consultant? What were some of the mistakes that you experienced and what lessons did you learn so those individuals can tap in and not repeat those same things?
Great question. And I love to talk about this stuff because how else are people going to learn? And I really believe that women, especially, we need to stick together and we need to help each other learn from our mistakes. So I think one was that I didn't vet the publisher well enough and I didn't read the fine print well enough. So that was a different publisher than this last publisher that you and I have, which I love, who I love through the Women's Speakers Association. So, I learned from that mistake, but I didn't know, I, as a marketer and a business consultant, I had always had clients who I helped their books get to the market, but I never knew what the behind the scenes work was. And you've done this so many times, so you're a expert at this by now. I never had. And so I had no idea what to expect. I was like a little baby, and I was asking for information like a little baby, like, tell me, like I'm 5 years old, how this works. And so I really didn't understand I didn't even know what a manuscript was. Like, what's a manuscript? Like, what part of the writing does your book get called a manuscript? And so I was learning terminology, I was learning logistics, I was learning what you can and cannot say in a book. And fortunately, I did with that publisher. I had a team that was helping me edit the book. I had a really amazing developmental editor, which I, again, did not know what a developmental editor was. And she was amazing. And she actually came up with the subtitle for my book, A Daughter's Journey with Her Mom to the End. After I had come up with the title, she came up with the subtitle. And I've learned to trust my intuition more, to really listen to my own voice, my inner leader, as I call her. I've learned to listen to her more, and I've learned to ask better questions, I guess, or ask, those questions like what we used to ask the doctors with my mom, when we were going through all of that roller coaster of ovarian cancer. Like, what questions have I not asked you? What am I missing here? What have I not asked you? And so today I'm able to dissect that whole journey a lot better, because now I've been published in 3 books, 2 of them being international bestsellers. And the other thing that I've learned, that I didn't take enough ownership in the first book of my own marketing. And because I was working full time, I was working 50 hours a week for a global business, a global company. And so at that time, I just didn't have the time to do anything myself. And the smart thing that I did was I hired a friend of mine who is in PR. She's in public relationships. So public relations, which is very, very different than marketing. They're not the same thing. And so I was able to get her expertise, her contacts. I've been on so many podcasts, and I've been in published articles on Thrive Global and the Atlantic magazine. And, she got me those contacts that I never would have been able to get on my own, because I'm not a PR person. And so I would recommend, hiring those people. Or when my sister was running for school board, for example, she put together a cottage cabinet. And this was a circle of people who were more specialized or experts in the things that my sister didn't know about when she was running for this position, right? And I talk about this in Out of Love book. I say, ask for help, ask the questions. Don't think that you can do it all yourself. I mean, as women, we can do it all ourselves if we have to.
But we also have to, but we also have to know when to pause and ask for help. And I think that that's something that a lot of women struggle with, asking for help.
Asking for help. And you said my favorite P word, which is pause. Pause. Like, I know I'm super type A. I know that I'm independent go-getter. I can do anything. I can figure anything out. And now I'm at that stage where maybe I don't want to figure it out. Maybe I want to bring somebody else in, like a friend who I trust, and pay them money, really, to value their services, to compensate them, and to have them help me. So I think it could be a hybrid for people, just depending on where you are in your life and in your journey. And all of this has been such a lesson for me in leadership. It's been transformational for me in my leadership journey. So, and that continues. That's never going to stop.
I love that. And something else that you mentioned that I wanted to dig a little deeper on, you said that you vet the individuals that you work with. And if it's not a match, you don't take on the project. What would you say to the individual listening, especially somebody that's starting out as an entrepreneur, a business owner, that might feel like, I can't say no. I don't have enough money coming in. I don't have enough clients. What would you say to that person?
I learned my lesson the hard way, Maryann. I had to fire a
Mm.
client. I had to fire a
Oh, wow.
client, and he was my highest paying client at the time. And I was just
Oof.
kind of starting out, and it was a steady gig, and there was a lot of money there. And I was a little bit blinded by my hunger, and by the fact that
Mm.
I had to make a living. And yet I took on this client, and the mistake that I made back then was that, and this is way before I was even thinking about writing or doing anything in the author world, is that because I wanted to be nice, like this old nice white lady syndrome, I wanted to say yes to everybody
Mm.
and everything. And that was a mistake, because what I missed in onboarding that client was I missed managing expectations. I missed that piece of it.
Okay.
Like, I had a contract and agreement that we both signed, and I had things kind of spelled out because I am my mother's daughter, and she taught me to do
Yeah.
that in everything that has to do with business. You write it down.
Mhm.
However, it wasn't really enough to satisfy this engineer that had hired me,
Mm.
and he didn't understand even after I explained it to him lots of different ways. And this is what I said to him: "I have been ineffective in communicating with you what to
Mm.
expect and how I can help you. So I wish you all the best, and I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to let you end your contract early," because at that time, I was doing 6-month agreements, and this
Okay.
was for social media management. So I'm a specialist in social media and outreach and community building using social channels. And so all of my agreements start out with at least 6 months. And it was one
Okay.
month in, and you know how you get that? You got to trust your intuition, everyone, because
Yes.
if you're getting stomach aches every time you get an email from a client, is that
Right.
really is that really wise, is
Mhm.
to devote your energy and continue with that client? And today I can say no. And yeah,
Right.
I'm in a much different position. I'm not starving anymore like I was before. It was the toughest thing I ever had to do, was fire that client.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
today I would say managing expectations. I'm a very, very detail oriented person. So I would vet the person even better. I mean, I asked around town about the guy. I lived in a
Okay.
small town at the time. I asked my sister, "Do you know this guy?" "Oh, yeah, I know him and his wife. They're really nice people." That just isn't enough. It's not enough to
Yeah.
say
Right.
yes, to get not literally, but figuratively. I compare it to getting into bed with somebody. Like, you're
Mm.
establishing a relationship in any kind of relationship that you're doing. So it's important to do your diligence and ask the questions and vet the person.
Mm.
The same thing happened to me years and years and years ago, back in the Google Plus days. I met these women on Google Plus, and we used to do the Hangouts, Google Hangouts, and all that stuff.
Yes.
Well, so back then, again, I was younger, I was hungrier, I wanted to say yes to everything. I ended up, again, I was flattered that this woman wanted to interview me on her podcast or her, Google Hangout. And it was two women, and I was so flattered. I said, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to." They ripped me apart in that interview.
Mm.
They
Wow.
contradicted me, they talked over me. Everything I said was and it wasn't in the way of kind of critical thinking or having really
Right.
meaty, juicy conversations. Like, it wasn't
Right.
that way. It was two women trying to take down another woman, which
Mm.
I just was like in shock. My mentor at the time was watching. He was listening in and watching this whole thing going down. And he's texting me on the side saying, "Get out of there. What
Yeah,
is
hang up.
going on? Like,
Right. Yeah.
stop. Like, they are making an idiot out of you." And so
Mm,
that was really disappointing. That was disappointing. So
yeah.
even to this day, I vet everybody who invites me to appear with them on anything,
Yeah.
even if it's a written article. And, I always listen to 2 or 3 episodes of their podcasts. And, I trust my intuition. So
Right.
I'm going to take the time, and I didn't always trust myself that the way that I do today, but it's worth taking the time because it's important, and we have relationships. You and I have established a relationship, and so
Yes.
it's worth it. It's so worth it
Yeah.
to make sure that you're my people.
Yeah. I love that. So before we get into the book that you and I co-wrote together that we were a part of, how did you make the transition from being an employee to becoming a consultant and a business owner?
Well, it was kind of an interim step for me. So I grew up in
Mm,
business. I'm part of an immigrant family that came here from Baghdad, Iraq, and started a business in the Detroit area. And from the time I was 9 years old, I was working customer facing in that business because I was born in Detroit and then kind of grew up partially in Detroit. So I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I've
wow.
started businesses and grown them my whole life. And then along comes this very conscious company that I really identified with their mission, and I had vetted them. And a good friend of mine was the global head of marketing there. And it just so happened that they were looking for somebody exactly like me with a skill set that I have to run community for a global company and build the community. So I started at that company in 2018 as a consultant. By the end of that year,
Oh,
my contract with them was up, and they wanted to keep me, and they wanted to pay me more money, which of course I said, okay. I'll try it. Like, I haven't been an employee in a long time since I was in college.
yeah.
I hadn't been an employee, but then I said, yeah, I'll do it. And then of course got the raise, and I'm what I call an entrepreneur because all of my training, all of my background says that you embrace the business as if it's your own, whether it is or not.
Mm,
And so that's how I behave. When I get hired with a client as a consultant, or if somebody wants to bring me in, as a company for a project or some kind of, short-term contract, I will go in and I will work from the belief that this is my business too. And I want this business to succeed. So that's why I'm kind of picky about the clients that I take on today, because what I've
yeah.
realized over the years after making so many mistakes, is that my energy is, I won't say expensive, but it's valuable. My
Right.
energy is
Yeah.
valuable. And I know this is something that you believe because I see
Yeah.
you, and I know how you
Yeah.
care for your own nervous system.
Yeah.
I've only just this last few years, actually since my mom died, really
Mm,
understood what a nervous system is, and
yeah.
how that energetic output makes us who we are and who we are not. So if we can't function at a high level, then it's probably not the place to be putting our energy. And so, yeah, those are
Yeah.
sometimes it sounds a little bit airy fairy, but I really believe in that. I can feel it in my gut, in my heart, in my chest, in my
Yeah.
throat. I am learning to listen to myself more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think something, that's very important too is like myself, like you had mentioned, there's a lot of things that I do. And, from going to events, from being on podcasts, from a whole lot of things. And sometimes I will look at my husband and I just am like, I am peopled out. I do not want to
Exactly.
speak to another soul. I will turn my phone off. I will text my children first and let them know if you need me, text him because my phone is going to be on do not disturb. And it's like literally I need 24 to 48 hours just doing nothing because I'm an introvert. And a lot of people don't believe that I'm an introvert, but I need my solo time to get my
Yes.
energy back. And you have to learn to listen because if you don't listen to your body, like you said, your intuition does not lie to you. And we often ignore that. So listen to those cues from your body. Is your body aching? How is your mood? How is your energy and things like that? So definitely some good tips. So you and I
Yeah.
connected in the book, The 21st Century. The title is so
Voices
long
of
that I
the
always
21st
forget.
century. I know. Women empowered through passion and purpose. And
I
I
love
mean,
it. And
what an amazing collection of stories. The cover is literally
yes,
fire. Like,
it is. Yes, I
I
love
couldn't
it.
have designed a better cover if I had tried.
Yeah.
Like, it just came out perfectly, especially for the time that I'm at in my life right now, that heart
Yeah.
on fire and my willingness to put myself out on the line more than I ever have before. And also, these days I'm not as concerned about what people think of me, especially if they're not my people. To a certain
Right.
extent, of course, you care, your children, your family, you care what those people
Yes.
think about you. But by and large, strangers, and because I'm like every day on social media, you know, you have to be discerning about what we were just talking about, where you devote your energy, how you devote your energy, who you devote your energy to. And so this is a lesson that I am learning over and over and over again, is that discernment is
Yeah.
important. That discernment matters. And it's not even growing a thicker skin. It's more like understanding what your values are, what your purpose is, and what you're passionate about, as we all wrote in the book,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
taking it from there.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I love
love I
that.
love all the stories. I've read all of the stories of our sister authors, and it's almost like a lot of people do a daily devotional where they'll read
Yes.
or they'll meditate maybe in the morning, and they'll read a page out of a book that they're following,
Yeah.
some kind of inspiration, whatever it is.
Right.
And that's what I've been hearing about this book, is that so many people and book clubs and book study groups are
Yeah.
using it in that way, because the chapters are very nice and bite-sized, very digestible.
Yes.
And interesting and fascinating. And
Yeah.
my chapter in the book is "You Are Worthy of Love." And
Mm.
there was a time in my life when I didn't feel that I was worthy of love at all. And I made
Yeah.
choices accordingly,
Right.
which got me into trouble, which
Mhm.
I ended up writing about one of those situations in this book. And it was a story that I've never told. Only people really close to me knew about it. And I think that the reason I really wanted to do it this time was, or at this point in my life, was that if not now, then when? I The time for being embarrassed and ashamed about something that happened in my past life is long gone.
Mm.
It's time to be of service to others, and especially to other women. And I thought, if I can tell this story and then people can look at me today and see that I'm okay,
Mm. Right.
then that could help people.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you about that, like what empowered you and what gave you the courage to talk about that now. And that's so true, because a lot of times we go through things, and number one, we feel that we're the only ones going through something, until you meet someone or you come across someone that has had the courage to share their story. And you're like, oh, wow, I'm not alone. Let me
Mm.
tap in and see how this individual overcame that situation, and use that to gain strength and boldness and the bravery to change things around and shift our mindset. So thank you so much for doing that for so many others, because I know
Mm.
this book is, it's number one bestseller. I know it's international, and there's some amazing things that are going on. So thank you so much for that.
Yes.
So you are on the Fearless Fridays with Maryann podcast. How are you living a fearless life?
You know, I'm learning to listen to myself again. Like I said before,
Mm.
I'm learning how to apply my own judgment and assessment and discernment to determine whether a choice that comes in front of me, anything that's served up to me, is this choice being made out of love or out of fear?
Mm.
I
Mm.
really believe that there really is only love, and that fear is kind of the other side of that coin. And so I'm learning to listen to myself more and make my judgments based on love. And if it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no, not doing that.
I love that. Yeah. And that's so true because, sometimes we wonder, I'm like, well, how do I know if it's out of fear or if it's out of love? And what you just said, if it's not a hell yes or a hell
Yeah.
no, there goes your answer. I love that.
You said earlier, you have to listen to your body. Your body will tell you.
Yes, that's so true. So what are you working on for the rest of the year? What do you have coming on?
Very exciting, very exciting. I'm writing another book, and I'm actually
Yay.
doing interviews and collecting stories from other people, not just women this time. And it is very exciting. I'm examining a subject that could be very disruptive, very, this is a cliche word now, but triggering. It could be very emotional for people to read, and even the people that I'm going to interview, for them to tell their stories. So I'm going to interview these people, and then I'm going to tell their stories as the author of the book about matriarchy. So that comes from my experience of being the firstborn of my mom's 5 children. And then my mom dying in 2017. And then me thinking as the oldest that I would become the new matriarch of the family. And not only did that backfire, but it also is teaching me that there are other ways to live our lives without roles and expectations being passed down through generations. So while I believe that there's value, so much value in that are who's come before us, my immigrant families on both sides and grandparents and all of that, I also believe that it's time for many of us, maybe most of us, to shed some of those generational dramas, traumas, roles, and expectations. And so I'm intentionally disrupting what people think about matriarchy by asking a lot of powerful questions to the people that I'm interviewing. So super excited. It'll come out probably in the spring of 2025. And in the meantime, I'm working with entrepreneurs. I'm working, again, like I said, with entrepreneurs, collaborative teams, conscious brands who really are trying to figure out how to show up as themselves in this very noisy, very chaotic, very confusing world today. I have my ways.
I love that. So where can our individuals connect with you, learn more about you, and purchase your copies of the books and so much more?
I love signing these books. I love it. It's so much better and more intimate of an experience than having people go to Amazon. So first of all, this book, Voices of the 21st Century, is not even available on Amazon with my name on the cover, right? And my bio on the back, just like yours. So the only way people can get it is through my website, which is lynnabatejohnson.com. And the same with Out of Love, A Daughter's Journey with Her Mom to the End. Care for the Caregivers. And they're both available as signed copies on my website, again, lynnabatejohnson.com. And it's on the offerings tab. So it's /offerings, or you can just go up to the top and click offerings, and you'll see both of my books. Plus, you'll see a waiting list for my next course called Show Up You, for authors, entrepreneurs, anybody that just is having some challenges with maybe their own identity and how they show up in the world, and especially online.
Well, thank you very much for being with us today and pouring so much wisdom into all of us.
Thank you so much for having me, Maryann. I've been looking forward to this, and I'm so grateful that you invited me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to leave a 5-star review and share with a friend or two. If you're not already following us on social media, come join the Fearless community at MRD Empowerment Solutions on Facebook or Instagram, or visit our website, MaryannRivera-Dannert.com. I'll catch you next week with a new episode, and remember that you are a priority and you matter.